My name is Lennart Frantzell, and I'm up on GitHub, Lennart FR on GitHub. The presentation you're going to see here has this URL, ibm.biz/sfhl 2018. Please, if you fork it, I'll give you a nice gift. And if you add something to it, IBM may give you a nice gift. I am a developer advocate with IBM, working on blockchain, AI, and a number of other technologies at the same time. And let's see what we're going to start with. I thought I'd start with, at the very beginning, and what's so special about this event? October 2008. It's now October 2007, 2018. 10-year anniversary of one of the major events in the 2000s with enormous implications for the rest of the world. How many people here have read this paper and know about it? Okay, good. We can continue. But the double spending problem and Satoshi Nakamoto's paper is as important today as it was 10 years ago. And it is a very, very good paper to reread from time to time to see exactly what he wanted to do and what he has been able to accomplish so far. And then we have some news item updates. First of all, we can talk about this paper here, which deals with security and cryptography in blockchain. IBM is contributing to blockchain in many, many ways. We have lots of people working on the code itself. We have people marketing the product. And we have the researchers, especially in Zurich, working on a number of innovations. And Christian Kachin is one of the major researchers in Zurich. And if you're interested in cryptography and Hyperledger, you can contact him directly with questions. He's a key person to know about what goes on in blockchain and Hyperledger. And he is very visible. Things are happening. How many people here have heard of the Hyperledger Ethereum Enterprise Ethereum Alliance? And what do you think of it? What are your opinions on that?
No comment.
No, that's fine. It's very exciting, to be sure, that we no longer have two camps fighting, but that we're trying to join forces. It also shows that maybe they were not as successful in the beginning on their own as they hoped to be, and now by joining forces they can have even more impact than they had before. But this is a very major occurrence, that they are joining forces, which I read in Europe, where I was until last night. And you have to really read up more on what this will foretell about how we can work together. Here is an interesting news. Now I seem to read all my Hyperledger news on sources like this. Robert Palatnik tells US FinTech attendees the DTCC settled 1.5 quadrillion securities transactions in the US in 2011. They now recently moved the node mainframe over to DTech. It's in a private permission-based Ethereum network and uses Hyperledger Explorer for governance. This again is a major, major innovation, major attempt to make Hyperledger and all other blockchains much more reliable and get them higher speed. And we'll talk more about the speed later. But this is really fabulous, what they can do today. Hyperledger performance metrics. This was a question we couldn't even ask as late as a month ago, because we were just throwing out numbers. We were just saying, well, we have so many transactions, we have so many on Bitcoin, we have so many on Ethereum, we have so many on these various things, without explaining what we actually meant by transactions. Now we have a working group focusing on that not just focusing on coming up with a number, but by focusing on coming up with what are we measuring? How do we measure it? And what measurement makes sense? Showing again that Hyperledger is maturing. There used to be a metric that said that when the product hits 4.0, it's mature enough to begin to be used. What is the release number of the latest Hyperledger Fabric? 1.2, I think now. No, beyond that. But it's not even 2 yet. So the point is that there's still lots of time for growth. We can write fabulous programs, fabulous solutions in Hyperledger Fabric, but it is not mature yet. Nobody can say that. It doesn't mean that it isn't good to be used. It can be, we can do marvelous things with it, but we are growing at a rapid pace as well, and you will see that here. So the fact that we can now do performance metrics is a new, very, very good innovation that we have just added. Let me then quickly jump over to this thing, which you have to, that's why you brought your smartphone with you. IBM has not only contributed to Hyperledger Fabric, we are also creating sample applications, code patterns. Every week, every day, every hour, it seems. We have a group here in San Francisco and in Austin and in Europe and elsewhere, simply writing open source sample applications, code patterns, that we want you to use, to download from GitHub where they are, fork them, and we love you, and add to it, and you'll become our heroes. This is new for corporations. It used to be so that you had got, when you someone wanted to use one of the sample applications, you got a must read of about 2 pages saying, if you do this, we will come and kill you. If you do this, without our permission, we will sue you. Here it is the opposite. If you don't use it, it will be very sad and we'll start to cry. Please use our stuff. And the reason you should be aware of this is because if you do it and if you fork it, you will be known to us. And if you're interested in getting a new job, that is not bad. To be known as somebody who forked a sample application from IBM, for instance, the created fair trade supply network, created or deployed a blockchain network using Hyperledger Fabric SDK Java, implementing asset securitization on the blockchain ledger. Take one of those things and create your own private version of it, adding to it, subtracting to it, and creating something that you then have us accept, and you're suddenly becoming known. It is much better than sending questions to recruiters or answers to recruiters. So this is something I really want to bring home to you, that this is really, really good. It's not just IBM telling you this is the way it is, just sit down and listen and do what we tell you. You can say that, no, you're good at IBM, but you're not this good, and here are some my suggestions for improvements of your code. Which again, I think is something to be aware of. So Hyperledger, we usually refer to Hyperledger as Hyperledger. But Hyperledger is not just one product, it is a number of products, as you can see here. Hyperledger Burrow, smart contract machine, permissionable. Hyperledger Fabric, which is the one I'm going to talk about. Hyperledger Indies, decentralized identity, which I talked to somebody about here earlier. Very, very exciting. Iroha, mobile application focus. Sawtooth, permission and permissionless, support EVM transaction facility. Family. Hyperledger Caliper, blockchain framework benchmark platform. Cello as a service deployment. Composer, we talked more about here. Explorer, we talked also more about here. And Quill, ledger interoperability. And these all have Linux Foundation as their owner, if you will. And Linux Foundation, if you didn't know it by any chance, if you've been spent the last 5 years under a rock someplace, is a powerhouse in open source. It's a virtual powerhouse in open source. And they've taken this under their wings and are doing everything they can to improve these products, have people focus on them, and especially have the products work together more and more. Very, very, very exciting. So it's not just a matter of Hyperledger Composer now or Hyperledger Fabric. It is a number of other products that are also coming into their own and that you can do lots of things with. How many people here have worked with Hyperledger Fabric? How many people know something about Hyperledger Fabric? Very good. Are there any questions about Hyperledger Fabric? Or can you tell me what you are doing with it and what you would like to do, perhaps? Anybody? You. Here's your chance.
Let's see. All right. Yeah. So it sounds like I can get started today, right? I can go to the patterns and I can
You can get something up and running within the next couple of hours. No problem. But I think the problem I see, not the problem, but the question I see when I talk to developers and startups is that it's not just a matter of, hey, I want to be part of the cool thing. So let me loose and I write something, especially, there are lots of things you can do that are easy to write. But on the other hand, I think that the last thing you should do is to begin to write apps. You should begin to look at use cases and also to see if there are any reason for writing the app you want to write, if any other people have written similar apps before, and really understanding how the product works.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So in Ethereum, in order to prevent people from abusing the system and running too much computation, right, there's this concept of gas, which costs something.
Yes.
Is there something equivalent? So if I were to start using this and building, let's say I ignored your advice and went out and built some apps and had some people using it, would they have to pay gas transaction for using it?
No, okay. It's quite different. And this deals with consensus, where if all of us here want to work on an application together, we will have a consensus. We all have to agree essentially to the transactions happening, and that has lots of implications downstream. So the answer is no, this is quite different. And the Ethereum and the Hyperledger are different, but on the other hand, they are getting more and more close to being merged, not totally merged, but more and more merged. Everybody's talking to everybody because everybody's open source. And there's an enormous amount of overlapping functions here, where people are starting to borrow. For instance, there are no tokens in Hyperledger Fabric. If you mention that you like tokens, people will slap your wrists, your hands, and all other parts of your body. And still, underground, there are talks of tokens in Hyperledger Fabric, because it may make sense. So that's the reason you want to be interested, I think, in Hyperledger and also in Ethereum and all the other cryptocurrencies is because there's so much exciting new stuff happening there. It's innovation upon innovation upon innovation. And then where it ends up, nobody will know. Where it ends up for you, you don't know. But if you learn the technology here, it's going to be very good for your career, and you're going to learn lots of things that you can use elsewhere if you choose to do so. Or else just write cooler applications in this space. Yes?
Can you compare the difference between Fabric and Sawtooth? The material is very similar.
Yeah, Sawtooth, I have no experience with myself. Has anybody else here worked with Sawtooth? No, it's a very wide field to cover, but maybe I can get back to you.
It's having compilation.
Well, hopefully sooner. So here we have the Hyperledger architecture at the high level. You see we have memberships, because here we have to join a Hyperledger application, you have to be a member. You can't just join without identifying yourself. So it's a permissioned architecture. We have to know who you are. If we like you, you can join. Otherwise, you cannot join. So we have membership services, registration, identity management, and auditability. We have blockchain itself, and we have blockchain services, consensus manager, P2P protocol, distributed ledger, and ledger storage. What is so special about these things? They can all be changed. If you don't like my P2P protocol, you can insert your own. If you don't like my ledger storage, you can insert your own, etc. And we have chain code, also known as smart contracts. It's all plug and play. This is very, very important. It's not just do it this way or not. You can do it this way, or you can do it your own way. So again, for you to become well-known and famous in the industry as a technology guru is simple, because you can just fiddle with these things, find something that you like that nobody else found out about, and run with it. That's what I see being the most exciting. Would you agree or not agree with that?
I agree in the fact of innovation and everything else.
Right.
From a business owner and somebody who's trying to create revenue, I think I never want to be first, right? I want to be a close second, because I don't want to be the person that's spending all the time and effort, burning everything to create something, so then everybody else go, that's a great idea, but you've done it all wrong, so we're going to learn from all your mistakes and do it right. And then by that point, your sunk costs are too high, and you're kind of stuck with it for a while.
You're too level-headed for your own good, yes.
I know, right?
No, but it's very good.
And that's something that I think, that I really like about Hyperledger, with the backing of the Linux Foundation and IBM, for example, is that to me is where I see the benefit will come. Whereas Ethereum is a lot more loose in that way, where I think Hyperledger is a lot more business focused, and I think it will come to the point where there's a lot more templates and a lot more structure and foundation around templates as to where you go and where you build from. Because I think one of the key things for me, if you think 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the track, when everybody's kind of into this technology, you then start looking at the next stage, which is, how do I connect my ledger to somebody else's ledger?
Right, and that those thoughts have already started to mature.
Right.
Yeah.
Which then starts, that's right, and that's the, that's kind of, you much further down the line, but it's those kind of things that I sort of think of as to go, like I said, I just don't want to be, I don't want to be bleeding edge.
No, and that's a very good point. But I think also we're seeing that lots of smart people are congregating to this space,
absolutely,
which is good for the space itself.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
I think you mentioned that consensus manager
Yes.
is pluggable, right?
Yes.
Right. So you have probably some kind of a default manager.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give examples of kind of well-known consensus servers that people try to plug in, and there was seamless integration and everything?
I'll come to something close to that in a few minutes. But let me start with, let's see if I can do this right. We'll, here we go. The composer. Early on, we decided that it would be good to make the writing of applications for Hyperledger Fabric as simple as possible. We shouldn't have to go in and write Golang code and so forth, because that was not good for business people who may want to write applications. They know the application they want to write, but they wouldn't know how to write the code itself. So therefore we came up with the Hyperledger Composer, which is a way, think of it almost as COBOL of its day today, for business people to write applications. Just like COBOL was.
We can think of COBOL.
Yeah, I never wrote COBOL, but I've been told that was something that's similar to this thing. So now, if you guys, there was somebody who said, can I follow along here and write some code? I think it was you in the red t-shirt. You're on. No, but if you want to.
If I want to, okay. I think I'll watch.
Yeah, but here is the composer. So the first you notice that we haven't signed in any way. We have not paid IBM any money. We're running on the open web, and we're just bringing up the composer. Here we have something called a wallet. It is not a wallet like in Bitcoin, but we can enter here the name of our network, the business network to be used for, get the network admin card, etc., etc. And if we can get a little bit more, here we have it. And here we have the nice thing, and we'll just go down here. We have about 12 template applications ready to run, that you can just click on, bring up, and begin to modify. They run as is, but you can now modify them. You can change, for instance, from if you're into sheep, and who isn't. We have animal tracking network. You can change that to tracking something else, like Hollywood movie stars or whatever is business important today. Bond network, car auction network, digital property network, and you can get it from your friends and neighbors, and you can contribute these to others as well. The reason this is nice is because it shows you what Hyperledger Fabric is aiming at. It's aiming at business people to make it as simple as possible for you, for anybody, to create an application and get it up and running. So that if we are all business people here, we can just get together with a minimum of training on this thing and begin to churn out our application. We could have something, certainly by tomorrow afternoon, we could have something that we think this is a good use case. This is a pattern that we want to use. And let's take a look at, we can click here. Connect. Let's get my glasses turned the right way. And here we have it. And now we can see how this is genial this is. We have participants. The business network defines participants, farmers and a regulator, assets, an animal, a business field and field, transactions, animal movement departure, animal movement arrival, and setup demo. Because in any business setting, we have participants in the business. No matter what we do, we have business, but I'm trading with you somehow. We're trading something. If it isn't cheap, it's airplanes or it's gold or it's Bitcoin or whatever. Bitcoin may be even better than everything else. But we are people who are trading something. And then we have assets. We're trading something. Animals, business fields, so etc. And transactions. What kind of transactions are we trading? Are we defining here? And then we can begin to build this application with these three components: participants, assets, and transactions. And everything here is part of this template. We have here also a model file. And here is the code. Here is the COBOL of today. Let me see here if I can do this carefully. Here we see we have a namespace. You recognize that. We have an enum, animal type. We have the movement status. It's in the field or it's in transit. We have a production type: meat, wool, dairy, breeding, other. And we simply make these things up. I can certainly see us doing that here if we were in the same business. We have farmer participants. We have he has an email, a first and last name. Farmer participants have addresses, etc., etc. Regulated participants and field assets. Define, 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 define. It's almost boring. In an animal asset, which is related to a field, animal identified by animal ID, string animal ID, etc., etc., and the field location is optional and farmer owner. And we continue like this. This is how you begin to create applications. Does it make sense? I would have been like to see a little bit more energy in the nodding, but I'll take what I can get. We're not done yet. How do we define performance or action here? We do it in JavaScript. This is where it is no longer possible to say that it's just a matter of define static assets. And here you can see the kind of code we are expected to write here. And I'm not going to go through this in any detail, but it's not very complicated. We have movement and departure of animals, waiting asset registry, etc., etc. But it's simply moving things around in the network. I own a goat. You want to buy the goat. You want to buy me 10 Bitcoin for it, and then we arrange where to change the goat and what money to pay, or cars, or whatever. This is a very easy way to get started, and a very easy thing to learn. And yet there is a problem with it, which I will tell you if you promise not to tell anybody. We have some more here. The problem we found is that it is easier to move the composer functionality into the base code than to have it stand alone like this. So we're working on making much. It's still usable. It's still something that you can do, but the performance is not optimal at the end of this exercise. So instead, we are going to add to upgrade the composer. May still have a composer, but have it talk more directly to the underlying strata. But it's still a very good way to learn. So the composer comes with a number of subcomponents. Yeah, I'm certain you will know Yeoman. We are using Yeoman to generate code, a skeleton code here. Here you see Composer CLI comes with the Composer components, CLI. REST server with a loopback connector and the web playground. These things we generate because we want to get something that is running at the end. We still have all the components, static components we generated. We Hyperledger Fabric, web, and embedded Node.js. And then we have the various, we mentioned this model file, script file, access control, and also we have a query file. So these are all components we have generated, or we are generating. And then we can run it cloud local or online. So this is something, again, we can get started learning tomorrow, and by tomorrow midnight, or even before that, by noon, we will be pretty close to expert, if we have some programming background. If we now want to begin to work on the real blockchain application, here is what I think we need to start by understanding. We need to get all the details of who we are and what we are going to do clear in our minds. We can't just say it takes 3-4 people and say, hey, let's go build something. We have to realize that we need a blockchain architect. And the blockchain architect must understand cryptography, must understand blockchain, must have written a blockchain or Hyperledger application, and must be able to answer all the questions that we may not be answering. We have the enthusiasm, we have the programming skills, but we don't know the space. So we need a blockchain architect. We also need the blockchain developer. He or she develops applications, and that's pretty much what I've shown you. That is not that complicated. Smart contracts is really all you write. We have a car manufacturer. We have this many cars. The cars are these models. Somebody wants to buy these many cars, then we have to move them more in another state. Moving cars around is not very complicated. So smart contracts is what the developer's world is bounded by smart contracts. That's all you do. Don't ask any questions. Just do your smart contracts. And that's what goes on. Blockchain network operator operates the network. The network can be quite complicated. It's not a simple thing. You and I can create a blockchain network in half an hour. We can actually do it here, even before we end. Do you want to try it? Should we time it? There's lots of pizza as a price. But the network operator has a lot of work to do, because especially as these things scale. It's easy to get an operator network, going, but then when it has to coexist with other networks and so forth and so on. And one thing with the network operator is that he also has to understand that there are external architectures, external products he has to be able to coexist with. Everything is not just blockchain. Traditional processing platforms. This is the key thing here. This is absolutely the key thing. If we write an application, no matter what it is not going to be a blockchain application bounded by a world that doesn't understand us or does understand us. We have to be able to get access to legacy applications. Patient records, for instance, customer records, all of those things are not going to say, okay, sorry, we give you all our customer records. They're not going to do that. They are making millions of the customer records today. We have to coexist with them. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all here. So the blockchain network operator will access traditional processing platforms and traditional data sources. If you understand that, you're on your way to understanding blockchain. If you don't understand it, sorry, you should probably do something else. And then membership services is pretty obvious because we have memberships here, and blockchain users B2B transactions. And the regulator perform oversight. But most of these things you need in one phase. You don't need that many people perhaps, but you need people who know these things and have this knowledge. And that is not simple. You can get started without it, in my opinion, with just one or two people. Actually, not one person, two people. But unless you get the skills, unless you can get a blockchain architect who can talk really heavy with other people on the same ilk, you're not going to succeed, I think. Would you agree or not agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Can I ask you,
Yeah, yes.
You mentioned that we have to access data from the traditional data.
Yes.
sources. So what type of data actually resides on the blockchain?
I'm sorry, what?
What type of the data you consider to kind of, to put on the blockchain, which would be auditable, verifiable?
Well, it could be data that, if the data does not, if it's new data that doesn't exist anywhere else, obviously, you put it on the blockchain. But what goes on the chain and off the chain is a very, very complicated situation because, first of all, do you want to put healthcare records on the blockchain, for instance? Healthcare is one of the most popular areas for blockchain. There is a healthcare working group out. You may have heard of that. It's very, very actively pursued.
So hashes of the documents of the healthcare, you would not put that. That's what you're saying?
I would not put healthcare records there because, first of all, it's heavily regulated, and I wouldn't get involved with the regulation. But also, take my healthcare records, for instance. Now, they would include X-rays on my body. X-rays are gigantic. They are gigabyte and gigabyte and gigabytes of data. You cannot put that on the blockchain.
Right, but nobody talks about putting the record itself, just the hash of the data. But that's a different story. For example, if it's supply chain, right?
Right.
Which is very popular.
Very popular, yes.
Area for Hyperledger. Supposedly I would trade, I don't know, claims, and I wouldn't know the record of this claim, as a history of the engine and other parts, and what breakages were, etc. So this data you would put on the blockchain.
Right. No, absolutely. I think the reason I'm saying what I'm saying is because I have come to realize that too many people I talk to think that if you start a blockchain application, I'll put all the data there. And it's more in my suspicion and actually knowledge that the people who own crucial data are not going to give it up for free. Real estate, for instance, is also a very important area for blockchain. And I've met at least 3 companies who came to talk to me about their real estate application and who wanted to put the house information on the blockchain. But they're owned by somebody else already. So why should they give you? And this is $1 billion business all across the US. So why should you think that they would give that up to you? Well, they probably want to be on the blockchain as well. I said, they know they won't. They want to make money in their own fashion way. So it's just an insight, I think, that the world is going to be complicated once you begin to write real applications. And that you have to be prepared to say, okay, we will buy the data from you instead of you giving us the data. Through an API. I mean, that's what happens to most of the applications today anyway, that you buy it through an API. It can be a very cheap price, but still you need an API to get there to it.
But then how do you audit it if it's off-chain? How do you audit the supply chain?
Yeah, well, there are ways of doing that, and you can audit it, and that's probably a question that would be beyond this meeting. But yes, you would have to audit it. And that's why I'm saying that the architect here is very important, because very often I think in this space it is the enthusiasts who are leading the charge, doing very good work. But for more enterprise level applications, I think it's going to be much more complicated than they think. Yes?
Which kind of leads on to one of my questions, which is, does IBM have an answer with GDPR and the privacy around right to forget?
Yes.
So is there a simple answer? Or?
Well, the simple answer is that first of all, we have GDPR, support for GDPR. The simple answer is that you can put it on the not on the blockchain, but on a database that can be accessed by the blockchain. And then you do it that way.
But
The blockchain cannot be changed, but the database can be changed.
Right, okay. And is that...
The word state database.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
I was thinking of adding that to it here, but I thought that would be to take too long time. But the idea is that you write to the word state database. And now I say, I want to be forgiven, forgotten rather. I'm forgiven as well, but forgotten at least, right? And you say, no, I want to see, what you look like today. And then we simply change the word state database, my entry. And everything else remains the same.
Okay.
And that's the same in GDPR and the right to be forgotten.
Yeah.
And the reason this is an important point, because I've been asked this for a number of times before, how you do that. And I told them really, I don't know. And they kind of, they smiled smugly and, But I realize now that those questions are kind of tricky anyway, because so much new is happening in blockchain. But even if you can do something today, you certainly will be able to do something in a few months. So there may not be an answer, but that doesn't mean that there will never be an answer. But GDPR is a good question. I was asking today here, by the way, if we can find out who came from what country. And we can't, because of GDPR. But again, your questions are very good as well. I mean, this is not something where there is a canned answer to exactly how to do it. But you have to know how to exist with external databases and use APIs to get the data you need.
So I assume that the whole point of having supply chain on blockchain is the ability to verify the sources and history.
Right.
And the audit the trend of trading and maybe mixing some chemicals and kind of origin of drugs, etc. So I'm kind of a little taken back looking at this picture.
And I mean, it may be that for your use case, there is no way of doing it except the way you're outlining it, that put it on the blockchain. That may very well be. It may very well be that your way of doing it is the only right way, that everything has to go on the blockchain in this case. But there are other cases where it's not possible, I think. So it's more a way of throwing up the discussion to show that everything is not limited to the blockchain, but there are other ways of doing it. I think you were saying something?
Yeah, so I mean, more generally talking about these businesses on the blockchain. So clearly IBM has done a ton of work tooling for like the technical side of it. Is anyone working, to your knowledge, on sort of decision-making processes for business, like coming up with criteria that make it easy to evaluate whether something should be on the blockchain? Or obviously, really big files, that's a good point she made a minute ago, and privacy. But more generally, like,
I haven't seen anything. I'm at the stage here, and I think the people I read are at the stage where they say that you have to go beyond the blockchain paradigm. If there's data that is not available to you, you can maybe be able to use it off-chain. And that realization will probably lead to other ways, and you can use an API to get it. But that's where my understanding of what's going on is. But I think it's going to be more and more common. And this GDPR is a very good example, or the right to be forgotten, because I have been bombarded with questions about the right to be forgotten, as I said, for a long, long time. And they say, haha, now we got you because you say blockchain can never be changed, the data can never be changed, right? And I want to be forgotten. How can you forget me if you can't change the data? Haha, And now we have the answer. You use the word state database, and you change it with the word state database. And that's a perfectly good answer. And it keeps the blockchain paradigm intact.
Well, you can shoot transactions, so people will not be able to, to treat it as even pseudonymous kind of, right now, blockchain is pseudonymous, but it can be completely anonymous if you shoot the transaction.
Right. So I think there are many ways around it, but again, I think the big picture, the way I want to concentrate on myself is the fact that once you begin once you say, yes, we got funding, we got $500,000 to build an application in 3 months in the real estate business, you're going to say, oh shoot, we didn't realize it was this complicated. because you cannot, you don't have all the data you need, especially if it's real estate. You don't have it. So that's something, again, it's not a matter of saying, okay, we want to blockchain. It's more a matter of saying, okay, we have to understand it more, which is why we need an architect. Yes?
What about posting encrypted data to the blockchain? Then you can control, you can actually see what the
Yeah, that would be another way of doing it, yes. So it's more a matter of, so to speak, looking at the big picture, looking at what blockchain agrees with, what the blockchain paradigm allows and does not allow, and then see what you can do to live under those constraints. Yes?
When IBM uses the term blockchain, is it actually a chain of blocks as proposed in the Bitcoin white paper, where a block is a Merkle tree hash, and each block references the previous block's
I wish you wouldn't have asked that question, but I will answer that question. Because this is, yeah. Yeah. No, you can't get me that way. It's not as simple. We have Hyperledger. We all know what Hyperledger Fabric is. That is not IBM's. It's an open source. Linux Foundation owns it, and anybody can use it. To IBM, there's also IBM blockchain. What is IBM blockchain? That is the blockchain that is running in the cloud. So you now, and you get together, and you have this marvelous, and you, of course, you have this marvelous application in Hyperledger. It works. You paid $0 and €0 for building it, because it's all free. It's all open source, it's all free. There's no hidden costs. You have it running on your laptops. You come to me and you say, look at what we have. And I say, I want to buy it. I want to pay $1 million and €1 million. And you say, great, we've got money. And then I say, but of course you have to run it in the cloud. And you say, oh, shoot. Because now it's going to cost you money. Which cloud can you run it in, by the way? If you Hyperledger Fabric, which cloud can you run it in? You know? Does anybody know? The IBM cloud, yes, you got first star, gold star, what other clouds?
Well, Oracle has the
Yes.
blockchain.
AWS.
That's right. Yes, and some Chinese clouds as well. Every cloud on the face of this world supports Hyperledger Fabric in its own cloud. It's pretty amazing. And when IBM does that in the IBM cloud, then it's called the IBM blockchain.
So is it a chain of blocks? The way that
It's a chain of blocks, yes.
chain of blocks?
Yes. But the IBM cloud, therefore, and the IBM blockchain is what's running in the cloud.
Is it still is there any, have you added any IP, is there a lot of IP added to the IBM blockchain?
Very, very good question. Here is the thing. Everybody says, it's open source, it's free, everything, look at our code, everything is marvelous, doesn't cost a cent. In the same time, a number of entities, don't want to mention the names, are working overtime to get patents on things that they are creating. I was at a hackathon a few months ago, and this little old lady came up to me and said, what do you think of this? I'm going to file an IP for it. And I said, you shouldn't file IPs, those are evil, you should just give it to the world. And she said, I don't agree with you. And she walked off, and she said, I already have a number of IPs. And this is something that is usually not talked very much about, but the open source is real. People are for open source. But at the same time, there is a movement, a very strong movement for IP in the blockchain world. And exactly where those two intersect, I'm not smart enough to know, but it's exactly. All right, here we have some code now. And we have one gentleman who said he's going to stay up to midnight to write the code. So we have, first of all, the prereqs, following the instructions in installing the prereqs. Here we have, everything here is documented. The blue lines here are the pointers to the actual code. Install CLI tools. You see npm install -p. You were warned in accepting this meetup that you would do all the code. But if you don't do it, I want to tell on you. npm install global composer, And then you see a CLI 2020. This was the latest version at the time of that I made this screenshot, and it's growing very rapidly. Hyperledger Fabric comes out with a new version every quarter, growing very, very rapidly.
You mean Linux Foundation?
Yes. So they are the best thing that could happen to a Hyperledger. I mean, they are running this thing like it would. Wherever I go to a big meetup, I'm running into somebody from the Hyperledger, the Linux Foundation, who give a talk. And they are running the meetup here, also the Hyperledger Fabric meetup here in the city. Brian Bielendorf, who is the head there, is usually giving talks there. And you should go to those because they're really, really good. REST server, generator, Hyperledger Composer, and Yeoman. So these are very simple installs. And then we have here an alternative mass install. You can do the same thing with just one line. We install the playground. We talked about the playground. We can set up our IDE, because we need an IDE as well. And we have all the information there. And then now we install Hyperledger Fabric. And you see, this is not very difficult. You get a tar.dc file that contains Fabric dev servers. You do a curl command, and within 40 minutes, you have downloaded everything, and you have the runtime up and running. And this is a little bit old. It should be HLB 13 now, because we released 13 without it. Start Fabric, create peer admin card, start the web app playground, and this really is what it's all about. And then how to destroy your previous setup, which is important as well. So if you, the gentleman in red here, if you want to do this later, and I'm not sorry for picking you, but if you want to do it, and the same for everybody here, use this thing, and this is how you do it. Hyperledger Fabric is the best documented project I have ever seen, and I've seen quite a few. It is amazingly well documented. There is nothing that is vague or odd. It's written for people by programmers by programmers. So I can really, you may not have any experience at all except some in Node.js, and that's really enough. So then we go in here and we use Yeoman, and we select tutorial network for the network, Apache 2.0 as the license, and select org example my network as the namespace. And we define the network, business network. And this is in the CTO model file. And we then, once it comes out empty, we then fill in the information here, like this. So it's a small trading application, very, very small. But at the end of this exercise, we have the network running. We have the application running, and then we can go in and change and modify what we already have running. It's much better to go this way than to start out and having to conceptualize everything. Let's start with the running application that we have created ourselves. And then we add the logic to it. I mentioned the JavaScript. Trade commodity owner, that asset registry, be await, etc. Await asset registry. And then adding access control. And this is all something that we can do in a matter of 10 minutes maybe. And here we have all the code. At the end of this exercise now, we have something running on your laptop, ready to go. And then we have step 3. Generate a business network archive. When I showed you how to create a COBOL for blockchain language. It generates something called a business network archive. And then we have to add that to the BNA file or banana file. We add that to our application. And that really is, we deploy the business network. We generate a REST server, which we have to have. Generate the application. And here we are. And again, if you are interested in learning how to program this thing, I urge you to go through this. If you have any problems, send me a question or post them online on the web. But this really is no harder than it looks like here. Now what you can do is you can write an application. Now we come to the questions you have brought out and other people have brought out here. How do we actually write a real application that is more than just displaying some information? And that's where our domain knowledge is going to be the first guiding factor. Do we know our space? If we know our space and you know your space, then no problem. You know what you want to do, and you can quickly see if you can do it. If we are simply Bitcoin or blockchain or something, fanatics or enthusiasts who want to build something cool, then maybe they should take some chance to come to this really good user group and learn more, or just read up on what they want to do. Yes?
Question. If people wanted, say someone started an application and started using it with people, and
Yes.
they wanted to exchange money, is that something outside of Hyperledger? They would like go to PayPal or something else, or do they exchange money within?
No, you don't exchange money within. No money. Unfortunately not. Sorry. But Bitcoin, I understand you can do that, or Hyperion. No, and it's a good question because this comes up again with the question of, well, why not? I said this was a business application, so if you and I trade in something wherever, why shouldn't I be able to pay for you? But that's also why we have gotten this thing, two things. There is talk now about the question that tokens wouldn't be a good thing to have. Tokens can mean anything we want it to mean. So if you and I create a token, and you get a token if you sell me things and vice versa, what harm has been done with that? But also keep in mind now that Ethereum and Hyperledger are being more intertwined. And I happen to know that things are coming down the pike. And if you say, can you tell that to us? I can say, yes, I can, but you can look at the code because it's all open source. I was slapped on the wrist one day 3 months ago when I said, can I share this with my audiences? And he said, did you know we are doing open source here, or which world do you think you are in? Look at the code, for heaven's sake, he said. And that's the point. Everything really is in the code, even upcoming functionality. So, but again, it's a matter of coming up with a very good business idea and then see what you can do in Hyperledger Fabric, or maybe you can use it in another Hyperledger variation. And then see what is missing, and then put some code out, or put some notes out on the forums and say, well, there's somebody else doing the same thing, and what can we do here? So this is social. It used to be that the programmers were nerds who sat in their little rooms when everybody else was not having fun. Now everything is social. We come to meetings like this, and we make friends, and we go to hackathons all weekends, and we make friends. And we learn things from other people who we didn't know even half an hour ago. So that is really the brand new thing here. Okay, now deploying it, this is the end, I promise. Deploying to the IBM cloud. So now then we have an application, it runs, it works, and it wasn't harder than I intimated it was. Now we have to run it in the cloud. Which cloud you run it is up to you and your conscience, but you know, since you want to come to this meetup, you will go with the IBM cloud. And I will tell people you told me so. We have a starter membership plan here, $250 US membership fee per month. And this is because this is, again, you wouldn't be here unless you really wanted to run it in industrial strength. Otherwise, you can run it on your laptop and nobody cares. But this is now you're running a real application. We have it's very easy to get started here, and you even have an enterprise membership plan that is for really big applications. And here you can see what you can do very easily. You can spin up, for instance, here a new network, have an order, a CA, peer. You can define members, channels, notifications, APIs. If you have code, install code, try samples. Doing everything through the console here in the cloud. And then what you're running, you can run in China, you can run in France, you can run here, you can run anywhere you want to. And this, therefore, is the way most people who have enterprise application in mind will end up. But the good news is that when you're at this stage, you have a proposed customer. Otherwise, there would be no need really to do this thing.
So how does it You lost me there for a second. So let's say that we build an app and
Right.
we run the blockchain on your server, and how does it scale in terms of the nodes? You know, how does it get past the 51% rule and to, because one of the things that I'm questioning in my mind where
Okay.
the gentleman was talking earlier about gas,
Yes.
and, you know, and the incentives of creating yourself as a node on the Ethereum network
Right.
is to mine and
Yeah, very much so.
monetize it, right? There's obviously not that incentive for somebody to become a node on Hyperledger.
While it is if they're part of your network or the network that you want to help out with this.
Right, but it's purely sort of voluntary in terms of offering yourself up there, right?
It is voluntary, but on the other hand, without there being some nodes, there will not be a network.
Right.
So if you approach me and I have a company and I say, that's great, I want to be on your network, you tell me, okay, here's how you create your node.
So how does the contract work with, you know, where you had sort of, you know, $1,000 for an enterprise?
Right.
How many nodes does that provide you? And so if we're building ourselves our own private network,
Right.
I'm trying to understand then as to say, do I then say, well, I can run that globally and that X amount I'm paying a month provides me with 12 capacity nodes that I can run anywhere.
You can make those calculations, and you probably would come to us to make them because I haven't seen anything. I know that you don't need too many nodes. Once I was approached with the question, it's 1,000 nodes, all right, and you know, no, you don't need to go that high. It's a handful of nodes.
Right.
Even if you have a sizable business network, it's going to be a handful of nodes. It's not a big number.
And
But
is
on the
that
other
to scale?
On the other hand, the question is about scalability and so forth is very important. And therefore, you would probably come to us to ask those questions. Because I haven't seen anything documented.
Right.
But it would not be something we would charge money for. It would be simply saying that I'm at this stage now, can you tell me you know, how I go? And you can probably do that also on the open internet to ask those questions.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because I'm just sort of thinking, you know, for example, if you're getting to month end and then all of a sudden
No, right.
processes kick in, then, you know, all of a sudden you could find that, and you know, and that's where Ethereum does a good job around the gas prices go up.
Right.
To then compensate for the network capabilities and the prices increase to cope with that, right? And then the prioritization happens where with Hyperledger you can create your own throttling,
Yep. Yes.
but it gets complicated as to understanding that, right?
Right.
Okay, I'll do something.
Also, I think, keep in mind that we had a number of sample applications here. You can take a look at those as well. They
Yeah,
may be
right.
there. And also, if you want to send me this question, I can return it. Because I think it's a really good question. I haven't seen it phrased the way you phrased it.
Right.
And I think it's a very good way to phrase it, because I mean, this is the information you need. You want to do what we ask you to do, namely host on our cloud.
Right.
So you need this information before you can do so. And that usually gets answers very quickly, because there's real money involved.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And here, you can see here a race to the middle or a race to the floor. All the clouds here are fighting for these customers. As we mentioned, every single cloud has support for Hyperledger Fabric. To my amazement when I saw that, every single cloud, including Alibaba and other clouds. And everybody's trying to woo customers by making them as cheap as possible. So for a developer, this is very good news. You can, in other words, run something in the cloud and demo it in the cloud to your customers without spending enormous amounts of money. And that's the end of the story, so to speak, because now you're in the cloud, you have learned how to create Hyperledger applications, and you're going to be a success, and you're going to say that it's because I came to this meetup that it all happened. That's pretty much what I had, and yeah, I'll answer your question, but just so I remember what I was going to say. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to friend me on LinkedIn, and I will answer your questions. Yes?
I'm still expecting you to answer
Yeah.
the question. What kind of consensus server people who created plug in Hyperledger Fabric?
Well, typically it's a PBFT,
What is
Practical Byzantine Fault Tolerance.
practical?
Practical Byzantine Fault Tolerance, if you heard.
Right, so of this type, so you just restricted to this type, and any consensus server based on this type of security
Right.
is pluggable.
Yes, that's right. And there's a lot of work going on. It's a really good thing a lot of work going on the consensus algorithms as well. New things are coming on the horizon. So knowing that is a very good skill to have, so to speak, knowledge to have. But and also not everyone. There is no such thing as a one perfect plug, algorithm. Everyone has the faults, the strengths, and the weaknesses. So finding the right one is the consensus algorithm. It's not as simple as one would think. One would think that this is the one that has the gold medal and everybody else is kind of, no. It is as much with blockchain when you get into it, the Hyperledger Fabric, when you get into the basement of it, so to speak, things get kind of complicated. It's easy to, we like to say that, as I said here, that you can get something up and writing very quickly, as our friend here will do in the next couple of hours. He will have something up and running. But then what he will find, which we will not find as quickly, is that once you have that, you get all these questions. Which PBFT algorithm is better? Can I run in the cloud? And this is really great fun. I wouldn't have changed this for any other job in the world. But don't think it is very simple. Because once you get to write enterprise applications are never simple. Never. It's fun to learn these new things, but don't think that I can knock that off, in a few hours. You may not be able to, unless you've done this before. Sorry, you were.
Yeah, see, you got that ad here, but it looks like, an AWS like EC2, like add more application was kind of button, but
right.
What you're doing, as you said, you're doing this in default tolerant consensus. So, adding more peers isn't going to get you more throughput, right? They all have to process the transactions.
Right.
So, what's the benefit, like especially in a private network? Like once you have enough peers, you feel like you have some redundancy in case you lose one or there's an outage. Like, why add more?
No, you don't. And there was a very good IBM architect who has written, and I can, if you ping me later, I can give you his articles. Very, very smart articles. And he said the same thing. Why do you want to add, nodes? Tell me why you want to add the nodes. And people say, well, I don't know. It sounded good to me, right? Yeah. But it's not good to anybody. And that's why, again, speaking to myself rather than to you, is that I'm finding that what I thought was simple 3 months ago turns out to be, there's always a basement under the basement. Once you get down there, there's also always things you have to learn. So to become really good, to become a good architect in this space, you need to spend some time building applications, really, which is the good news, right? And then for each one, you will find things that you never thought you had to learn. And then you become even more attractive on the job market. And make even more money when you find the cellular application on the IBM cloud.
But to answer that question as well, so one thing that we're looking to design is we're going to have dynamic consensus. So we will get to the point where for lower priority items where we don't need everybody to, if it's a low risk item, then we will just get to the point where we'll just take a certain amount of nodes to do the consensus and then go from there. So then we can scale faster by the fact that we'll get to the point where we'll say, well, once we get 3 nodes, then we're good to go, and off it goes. Where if it's something that's maybe a payment or something, a peer-to-peer transaction, then it's a case of, no, we want the whole consensus to ensure.
Are you going to document it?
I will do once I get the time, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So then it gets to the point where having more nodes does provide us that throughput because we can scale on the fact that we can set, and we're even looking at dynamically doing the consensus based upon time zone geography as to who's using the network and who's not.
Which is perfect for the cloud, is perfect for that, of course.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a very good use case for the cloud as well. And keep in mind, the cloud was quite new in the space. So I'm certain we're going to get lots of more writings, articles about what you can do with the cloud that we haven't gotten yet because it's new. It was just a few months ago when the cloud was opened up for blockchain.
So I kind of, so in this scenario, I can imagine right now it's a kind of a consortium of kind of enterprise bodies who get together and just, do this, Hyperledger kind of, application just amongst themselves. It could be a bunch of banks or a bunch of
Mhm.
suppliers.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, what else can be done beyond that?
My opinion is that it might be the three of you here, or four of you, who have created an application and who have a prospective buyer who has requirements. It has to run this fast, it has to run in the US, in Japan, and in France. And they're willing to pay you say $100 million. I mean, it's big money to your small company. And they have those requirements. If you do this, if you make your application run like this, we'll pay for your application. And you say, the only way we can do, we have the money now on the table. The only way we can get this running in the time zones is through a cloud. So let's use the cloud. And the people who bought your application never mentioned the cloud. They don't even know that their application is running in the cloud. They just have a URL to it. You're managing the cloud for them, and you charging money for it. So I don't think that it's anything to do with people who are saying necessarily, I want it to be in the cloud. You will make that decision. Maybe I come to you and say, I want it to run in the cloud, and you say, no, you don't need it.
I'm not talking about, cloud or no cloud. It's understood that it's at this point that it will run on the cloud. I'm just trying to think of what other kind of, group of people or extended group of people. The thing is, you have to configure a Hyperledger channel between
Yes.
entities that communicate.
Absolutely, yes.
And so for security reasons, right?
Yes, I agree.
So if I'm e-commerce and I have millions of users, I would not do that with my users because I'm not going to maintain millions of channels,
right.
So that's kind of type of limitations that I have in mind. So that kind of limits of how many bodies can Hyperledger. So what kind of interesting scenarios you tell us about? It's not just, I don't know, maybe 1,000 banks got together or something like that. What?
The banking scene I'm not into, but the hospital, healthcare I'm very interested in. And the healthcare is going to happen. I mean, because it fits quite nicely with patient records and other things. It's going to take time because it's heavily regulated. But that is something that I like. Food safety is another one that actually IBM is building a number of applications. I'm sorry? No, sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's the Walmart use case.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Equal food safety.
Right.
Oh, right. Something else. Was it oranges or something? Yeah.
It's very big. It's very big. I'm not that excited about that, but that's because I'm not that excited about food, but I mean, it's very interesting, though, don't get me wrong. And the point is, there's one good point about the food safety as well, is that those are the use cases we have to go through before we begin to write our own application. If we see that there are 20 or 30 applications for food safety, we know that blockchain can be used for food safety. And that's good. If there are no applications out in the air.
Right, but again, that's what I was wondering. It can be used for food safety. If there is a verifiable kind of, auditable record where they came from what soil and what was put in the soil and how it was processed, what inputs went. But if it's off the chain, then it can be falsified.
It can be classified if you use an API to pull in crucial information to the blockchain, to put pointers in the blockchain. You can never, for instance, put X-rays in the blockchain because X-rays are made of digital material, so to speak. But you can have pointers to it.
I see. That's what.
And that's enough. That's enough to satisfy the requirements for the application.
So mathematically it would be then verified.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And there's a diamond verification application that is very interesting. So in South Africa, they didn't mine diamonds, and they have now a diamond application that IBM has highlighted, where they can see if the diamond that you buy for $10 million, just because you happen to like it, is fake or real. And of course, there's no way to put the diamond on the blockchain, but you can put pointers to it. So it does work to use pointers, and that is a way around some of these real problems. And with that, I think we are pretty much at the
One
end.
last question, if you guys have any
Thank you. All right. Thank you.